A king lies face down on the stone floor of a palace in Jerusalem. He is not wearing a crown. He is not holding a scepter. We picture a judge in black robes, looking down from a high mahogany bench, holding a wooden gavel. We picture a criminal standing in iron chains, the sudden, overwhelming heat of Rachamim, to feel the gut-wrenching ache of a mother who would rather lose her case than lose her child. But this biological mercy does not just appear in the private prayers of a desperate king. It defines the very birth of the nation, because centuries before David wept on that floor, a whole generation of Israelites stood at the base of a burning mountain, and there, in the sand, they forced God to choose between the contract they had just broken and the womb that had formed them. Read the text of Exodus 32. It is a legal catastrophe. We read it today as a classic Sunday school story, but it is actually a supreme courtroom crisis. Moses is still on the summit. The stone tablets are still heavy in his hands. Down below, a fire is burning. The gold is melting. The people are dancing. They are barely a month into a brand new covenant, and they have already shattered the primary clause. If this is a Western contract, the story ends right here. Breach of terms. Immediate termination. The gavel drops. The fire falls. A nation dies in the sand. But a contract is not what God cut with Abraham. Look at what actually happens in the text. God threatens to consume the camp. Moses stands his ground. He intercedes. He points God directly back to the ancient oath. Guilty as charged. Hoping the judge decides to lower the gavel and look the other way. We think of a pardon. We think of a canceled sentence. And then Moses goes back up the mountain. He takes 2 new stones. He climbs back into the cloud. He listens to the wind howling against the granite. God passes by. This is Exodus chapter 34. This is the most quoted verse in the entire Hebrew Bible. God speaks his own resume. He announces his own character to a people who have just committed spiritual treason. He does not introduce himself as a supreme judge. He introduces himself as a God merciful and gracious, abounding in steadfast love. Look at the Hebrew underneath the English. Merciful, Rachamim. Steadfast love, Chesed. The 2 words crash together in the dust of Mount Sinai. They are not random adjectives. They are the 2 hands of God holding a fractured people. Chesed is the structural steel of the covenant. It is the oath that refuses to let go. Rachamim is the biological heartbeat inside that structure. It is the womb that refuses to detach. The golden calf is not a legal breach. It is a family fracture. And a family fracture requires a completely different kind of repair. This becomes the paradigm for the rest of the Old Testament. The timeline moves forward. The kings fail. The people rebel. The Babylonians arrive. With swords and torches. The smoke rises over Jerusalem as the temple burns to the ground. By all legal metrics, the contract is dead. We imagine a deity who is simply choosing not to strike us with lightning. But if you look closer at the actual Hebrew words, David is crying out. But the prophets keep pointing back to the 2 words. Jeremiah writes from the rubble. Hosea marries a woman who continually leaves him, just to physically embody the madness of God's loyalty. The iron grip holds on. The mother's womb still aches. The covenant is battered. But it does not break. But the tension remains. How does a holy God maintain the iron grip of a king while feeling the biological ache of a mother? How do you and I actually experience these 2 ancient words today? The answer requires stepping out of ancient history, bypassing the legal system entirely, and looking directly at the vocabulary of your own identity. If you have ever sat in the quiet of your own car, white-knuckling the steering wheel after making a massive mistake, you know exactly what a courtroom feels like in your own mind. You feel the cold sweat of a late-night anxiety spiral. You feel the heavy, suffocating weight of an invisible gavel coming down on your life. You mentally rehearse the arguments against yourself, assuming God is sitting behind a massive mahogany bench, flipping through a ledger of your daily failures, calculating whether it is finally time to void your contract. But that ledger does not exist. The relationship you have with God is not a legal transaction you maintain by flawless behavior. While his face is pressed against that cold floor, you start to see something the Western courtroom reading completely misses. It is an adoption sealed by blood. When you fail, when you break the terms of your own promises, when you hurt someone you deeply love, when you fall back into the exact same habit you swore you would break, God does not consult a legal statute to see what to do with you. He operates from the ancient reality of Hesed. He holds on to you with an iron grip that is completely independent of your ability to hold on to him. Your performance does not dictate your standing. But a legal guarantee of survival is not always enough to heal a shattered conscience. Maybe you are in a season where you feel completely undone, where the grief or the guilt is so physical. You can feel the dull ache right behind your ribs. You do not just need to know that your contract is mathematically secure. You need to know that you are held. That is where you must understand Rachamim. When God looks at your suffering, he does not offer the sterile, detached pity of a distant judge, tossing a coin to a beggar. He feels the visceral, biological response of a mother toward the fragile life she carried in her own body. He feels the heat of the womb. Womb compassion is not a metaphor meant to make you feel warm and fuzzy. It is a fierce, protective reflex. Biblical mercy is not a legal transaction. It is a biological tether. To feel the weight of this moment, you have to look at the language. It means that when you are hurting, the God of the universe is experiencing a sympathetic resonance with your pain, exactly like a mother's body physically reacts. Her milk letting down the moment she hears her infant cry in the next room. But words are cheap if they are never tested by a sword. If God truly holds us with the iron grip of a king and the biological ache of a mother, how did he ultimately prove it? A covenant of blood and a womb of compassion cannot remain ancient Hebrew words forever. Eventually, they had to take on flesh. A man hangs on a wooden beam outside the city walls. Iron spikes pin his wrists to the rough timber. His lungs fight for oxygen. The afternoon sky turns pitch black. The limestone beneath the cross absorbs his blood. The air smells of sweat, dirt, and death. This is Calvary. Most people look at this hill and see the ultimate courtroom drama. They see a judge demanding a penalty, a ledger requiring a payment, a sterile transaction of cosmic debt. But the cross is not a legal transaction. It is a covenant completion. Look closely at the man, suffocating on the wood. He is not just dying. He is fulfilling the two words. Look at the nails holding him there. That is Chesed. David is actually speaking. Because when he asks for mercy in the opening line of Psalm 51, he doesn't just ask for one thing. That is the iron grip of a God who made a blood oath with Abraham in the dark. God promised to bind himself to a fractured people, fully knowing they would shatter the terms. In the ancient world, the party who broke the treaty paid with their life. But on this hill, the ancient structure is inverted. The weaker party commits treason. The stronger party bleeds. The iron grip refuses to let go. Chesed holds him to the wood. Then, look at the spear. A Roman soldier walks up to the lifeless body. He thrusts a heavy blade directly into his side. Water and blood pour out into the dust. That is Rachamim, the tearing of flesh to bring forth new life. A mother's body is broken in the violent agony of childbirth so that a child can breathe. The body of God is broken on a play. Roman execution rack so that humanity can wake up. His insides are pierced. His heart is literally ruptured. The womb compassion of God does not just ache from a safe distance in the heavens. It enters the physical world. It climbs onto a cross. A king pays the treaty. A mother takes the sword. The true mother in Solomon's court threw away her rights to save her child from the blade. The creator of the universe throws away his life to save his children from the grave. The two ancient words finally collide in he asks for two. Look at traditional English translations, and you will see the repetition. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love. Single Jewish body. The sky clears. The breathing stops. The heavy, woven veil in the temple is suddenly torn in half from top to bottom. The barrier is gone. The ancient, transactional system of religious performance is permanently shattered. But what exactly emerges from the rubble? A nomad walked through severed animals in the dark, and an oath was sworn that could never be broken. A nation danced around a golden calf in the sand, and the Creator held them with an iron grip. A guilty king pressed his face against a limestone floor and appealed to a mother's biological ache. A true mother surrendered her rights to a bronze sword, and her womb compassion saved the child. A savior let iron spikes pin his wrists to the wood, and the ancient promise of loyalty was paid in full. A Roman spear pierced his side to pour out water and blood, and the womb of a new creation broke open. A heavy temple veil tore from top to bottom, and the courtroom doors were closed forever. Same covenant, same womb, one God. But here is the part I keep coming back to. According to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Steadfast love, abundant mercy. Underneath those English phrases are two distinct, ancient Hebrew words. David, lying face down in the smoke of burning myrrh, realizing he had zero legal leverage left. He didn't try to negotiate a better contract. He realized that the God he had betrayed was not holding a wooden gavel. He was holding an oath. He was feeling a biological ache. The worst moment of David's life was met not with a sentence, but with a tether. If you are in a season where you feel like you have broken the terms for the last time, where the guilt feels like a physical weight behind your ribs, and you are just waiting for the gavel to finally drop, you are not a defendant in a courtroom. You are a child inside a covenant. The loyalty holding you is an iron grip, and the compassion watching you is a mother's womb. You do not have to perform your way back into the family, and may the God who absorbed the sword hold you in his fierce compassion and carry you safely inside the covenant. Two entirely different frameworks for how God relates to human failure. And yet, for centuries, English translators have struggled to capture their raw power, often flattening both of them into the single, legal-sounding concept we call mercy. That linguistic flattening has shaped the modern imagination. The air in the private chamber is thick with the smoke of burning myrrh, but he does not notice the scent. His royal garments are torn. It has convinced a massive portion of the world that God is primarily a judge, sitting in a distant chair, deciding whether or not to punish us. But the detail that changes everything is where these two Hebrew words actually originate. Because to understand what David is begging for, and to understand how God actually responds to human ruin, you have to leave the legal system entirely. We are a society built on contracts. Every time you swipe a card, sign a mortgage, or check a box at the bottom of a software update, you are engaging in a transactional agreement. Our world operates on the foundational idea that relationships are maintained by mutual performance. If you do your part, I will do mine. If you breach the terms, the contract is void, and the relationship is dissolved. It is no surprise then that when we read the Bible, we naturally import this legal architecture into our understanding of God. When we hear the word mercy, we immediately place it inside a judicial framework. We imagine the sterile, fluorescent lighting of a modern courthouse. We hear the heavy thud of a wooden gavel echoing against wood-paneled walls. We picture a prosecuting attorney laying out the irrefutable evidence of our guilt, and we hope that the judge, in a moment of arbitrary pity, decides to tear up the sentencing document. In the Western framework, his bare hands are pressed flat against the cold limestone. He has just been exposed. The prophet Nathan has just walked out of the room. Mercy is not a movement of the heart. It is a suspension of the law. Even the English word itself carries this transactional baggage. The word mercy actually descends from the Latin word merces, which originally meant a price paid, a wage, or a ransom. It is a word rooted in commerce and compensation. It suggests a ledger that needs balancing, a debt that someone has decided not to collect. And while the Bible certainly uses legal metaphors at times to explain our standing before God, it is not the bedrock of how God relates to his people. The ancient Hebrew mind did not view the world through the lens of independent individuals signing sterile contracts. They viewed the world through the blood-soaked reality of a covenant. A contract protects your interests if the other party fails. A covenant binds your identity to the other party, even when they fail. A contract is signed with a pen on paper, easily shredded when the terms are broken. A covenant in the ancient Near East was cut in flesh, sealed with an oath, and carried the weight of life and death. When David is lying on the floor in Psalm 51, a man guilty of adultery and murder, a legal contract demands his immediate execution. The law requires blood. Under a transactional system, he has zero leverage, zero defense, and zero hope, leaving behind a verdict of death, a broken family, and a shattered kingdom. This is David, in the immediate aftermath of the Bathsheba scandal. But David does not appeal to a legal loophole. He appeals to the first of his two words, and to grasp the sheer audacity of what he is asking for, you have to understand a word that is so robust, so inherently untranslatable, that English Bibles have spent 500 years inventing new phrases just to try and capture its shadow. The sun goes down in the desert. A deep, terrifying darkness falls over a nomad named Abram. The sand beneath his feet is still radiating the heat of the day. The carcasses of animals are split in half, laid out in the dust. The smell of raw meat and iron fills the air. And then, a smoking firepot and a flaming torch pass right through the blood. God makes a vow. He binds himself to a fractured people. He ties his own divine reputation to their survival. He cuts a covenant. Centuries pass. David knows this story. He knows about the blood in the sand. He knows about the smoking firepot. So, when he presses his face against the limestone floor in Psalm 51, he does not ask for a judge's leniency. He asks for a covenant promise. He prays, "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love." The word your English Bible translates as steadfast love is the Hebrew chesed. The blood of a loyal soldier is on his hands. The guilt is heavy in his chest, making it hard to draw a breath. It is one of the most magnificent, untranslatable words in ancient literature. It appears nearly 250 times in the Old Testament, and it has caused translators to pull their hair out for centuries. In 1535, an English translator named Miles Coverdale realized that no single English word could carry the weight of this Hebrew concept. So he invented one. He smashed two words together and gave the English language the word loving kindness. But even that is too soft. Even that sounds too sentimental. Chesed is not an emotion. Chesed is a choice. It is stubborn devotion. It is loyal love. It is the unbreakable commitment that exists between two parties in a blood covenant. In the ancient Near East, kings made treaties. If the weaker party failed, the stronger party brought the sword. But God takes the structure of an ancient treaty and flips it. He promises to remain loyal even when the other side completely fractures the agreement. A nation builds a golden calf. Chesed holds on. A prophet runs away. Chesed holds on. A king commits murder. Chesed holds on. Moses stands in the cleft of a rock in Exodus chapter 34. The wind howls. The granite is sharp and cold against his back. God passes by in the storm and declares his own name. He calls himself a God abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. And so, in the devastating quiet, the king begins to pray. He composes a desperate plea for his life, for his soul, for his mind. Abounding in Hesed, he is announcing the bedrock of his character. Chesed is not a fleeting feeling of pity. It is the iron grip of a sworn oath. When David is caught in his sin, he does not appeal to his own track record. He has none. He does not appeal to the law. The law demands his death. He appeals to the iron grip. He reminds God of the covenant, asking him to hold on to a king who has completely let go. But David knows that an iron grip is not enough. A covenant guarantees survival, but it does not heal a shattered conscience. A king lying on a floor, crushed by his own guilt, needs more than a legal standing or a loyal oath. He needs something deeper. He needs something softer. And so, in the very same breath, he speaks his second word, a word that shifts the entire conversation from a covenant of blood to the biology of a mother. There is a detail hiding in plain sight within the second half of David's sentence. He has already asked for the iron grip of the covenant, but he knows his internal fracture requires something more intimate. So he says, "According to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions." It is a prayer that will be written down, passed along, and sung by millions of people over the next 3,000 years. The word your English Bible translates as mercy or compassion here is the Hebrew Rachamim. It appears dozens of times across the Old Testament, usually translated to describe a profound, moving sense of pity towards someone who is suffering. But to capture what David is actually feeling, you have to look at where the word comes from. The root of Rachamim is the Hebrew noun rechem, and rechem does not mean pity. Rechem literally means womb. When an ancient Hebrew speaker heard the word Rachamim, they did not picture a courtroom gavel descending on a wooden block. They pictured the dark, warm, protective space inside a pregnant woman's body. They thought of the visceral, physical connection between a mother and the fragile life, developing just beneath her own ribs. They understood it as a biological tether that simply cannot be unfelt by the person carrying it. Rachamim is not a distant judge deciding to let a criminal go. It is a mother who cannot sever her own biology from the child she carried. We see this explicit linguistic connection in the book of Isaiah. Chapter 49. When God is trying to explain his disposition toward a rebellious Israel, he asks, "Can a woman forget her nursing child? That she should have no compassion on the son of her womb?" The word for compassion used in that sentence is Rachamim, sitting right next to its physical root, Reshem. God is deliberately bypassing the language of courts. You know it as Psalm 51. He opens his mouth and begs for the only thing a guilty man left with nothing can ask for. And kings, to borrow the language of maternal anatomy. If realizing that God's mercy is described with maternal biology shifts something deep inside your chest, you are exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we dig past the English translation to uncover the breathtaking reality of the original text. So David, crushed by the weight of his own violence, asks the creator of the universe to respond to him from the womb. He is asking God to look at a murderer and feel the fierce, irrational, protective ache that a mother feels for a child in danger. He needs the hesed of a king to keep him in the covenant, but he needs the Rachamim of a mother to heal his shattered soul. And to understand just how overpowering that biological ache actually is, you have to watch it collide with a sword. The bronze sword reflects the sunlight streaming into the royal hall. Two women stand before King Solomon. Their faces are stained with tears and exhaustion. One infant is dead. One infant is alive. Both women claim the living, breathing child as their own. The argument spirals into a deadlock, and the king gives an impossible order. "Bring me a sword." The guards step forward. The king commands them to cut the living child in two and give half to each woman. The heavy metal is raised over the infant. The blade catches the light. The room goes entirely silent. He asks for mercy. Most people assume they know exactly what that word means. We hear the word mercy, and we immediately picture a modern courtroom. The false mother watches the blade. She accepts the cold logic of the king. If she cannot have him, no one will. But the true mother breaks. Her cry echoes off the stone pillars. She falls before the throne. Give her the living child, and by no means put him to death. She does not pause to calculate the fairness of the outcome. She does not wait to negotiate a better custody arrangement. She throws her own rights away so the child can survive. The text in 1 Kings, chapter 3, tells us exactly what happens inside her body in that fraction of a second. The Hebrew text says that her Rachamim grew hot for her son. Her womb compassion caught fire. The physical memory of carrying him, the tearing of childbirth, the weight of him resting against her chest, it completely overpowers the king's decree. Her surrender is not a legal strategy. It is an uncontrollable biological reflex. This is what happens when a sword threatens the child of your womb. And this is exactly what David is counting on when he prays on the floor in Psalm 51. He is guilty. He is the baby under the sword. The blade of divine justice is raised directly over his neck, and rightfully so. But David looks up, and he appeals to the womb. He asks the creator of the cosmos to look at his broken, murderous, adulterous life, and to feel.